Hello, how is it going? I tried my best to find like a good setup to paint and also hang out on stream. So hopefully this works out. I'm not sure if if it works out well, I think it would be cool. So I can like, I don't know, work on the homework, hang out, and all sorts of things. So, how's it going today, Bread Lord? Oh my god, the way that Ditto is sleeping is destroying me. That's so funny. Oh my god. So, let's navigate to video number 1. Are you gonna switch to the webcam? Yeah, here we are. We have my canvas here, so hopefully this is goodly. I'll probably be, looking away at the long day. Very hot, groceries cleaned. That's good, that's good. I feel like the weekends, as I go through life, I'm always like so busy trying to go between all the things. But on the weekends, I always feel that urge to clean because I'm like, oh, I finally have time. Time to clean. Okay. So, oh man, this is like a little squished. Oh, darn it. Yeah, so we have, thanks. All right, yeah, hopefully it works out. I will get started with painting and I'll check back with the chat every couple minutes, maybe. Artista, hi, long time no see. How are you? I'm good. I started a new program. It's called Evolve Artist, and I'm doing an assignment from that today. Is this assignment 2? Yep, this is exercise 2, part 2, whatever it's called. This is the second thing. We're going to be making gradients, right? In the first assignment, we filled in squares, and now we're going to be making gradients. Woo! Okay. I'll get started and I'll check back in like a couple minutes. Hopefully that's a good setup that works between chat and painting and whatever. Well, I'll be going through the lesson right here. So I don't want to show the video because I feel like that's sharing too much, but he said if I wanted to like let y'all like listen into the video, that would be fine.
For the next exercise, we're going to start making gradients. So what we're going to do here is we have rectangles, and again, I have one of each. You're going to have pages with multiples of this. What we want to do is in every object, you're going to find that you have a light and a shadow. And those shadows are going to be married by one of two types of edges. Either a sharp edge, which is what we did in the last exercise, we made sharp edges, or a gradient, which is what we're going to do here. And a gradient is just a fade between two shades. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill each of these boxes, half with a shadow and half with a light. Half with a shadow and a light, shadow and light. And then I'm going to show you how we dissolve the edge in between them. You don't just smush them together. There's a way of doing it that's going to work beautifully for Grayscale, but is going to make, it's necessary for color. So we're going to learn how to do it right here at the beginning. So we're just picking up right where we left off. Again, so in this one, I'm going to start with my extreme shadow and my moderate light. Extreme shadow, moderate light. Now, normally in a painting, the splits that you're going to see will be, if an object is dark, it'll have a very dark shadow, and it'll have the darker of the two lights. If it's a very light object, it'll have a moderate shadow, and it'll be extremely bright. So a light object would have this as its light, and this as its shadow, for the most part. And a dark object, like a black object, would have this as its shadow, and this is its light, right? Because these are going to function as shadows. All things in our painting that are a shadow will be covered with one of these. All things that are light will be covered with one of these. Okay, so we're just trying to make combinations. So here, this shadow against this light. The second one will be this shadow, the moderate shadow against the extreme light. And then the last one will be the moderate shadow against the moderate light. And so we'll do all three of those combinations. And then, by and large, that's what you're going to see when you're painting. So those are the ones that we do. So I'm just going to start by filling these exactly the way we did with the last exercise. Okay, so I want to start just divide it in half. And again, try to get as close to half as possible. And I'm just going to fill. Now, I want you, because you're just starting out, to make sure all of your edges start out sharp. I'm going to go around and I'm going to fill, and then I'll go in and I'll take care of the edges. And again, remember, I've shown you how this is done. What I'm doing right now, you shouldn't necessarily be copying it. You've been shown how to fill. I'm going to move fast just to get through it. I don't want you doing the same thing. I want you to do it the way you were shown in the prior exercise, okay? There's going to be from time to time, there's going to be a do what I say, not what I do thing going on here. I don't want you to race through this stuff. Later on, you're going to be lightning fast. You're going to be so fast when it comes to painting. I don't need you to rush through the stuff now. If you rush through it now, you'll be sloppy but fast. If you do it the way that I'm telling you, you'll be an incredible artist and fast. So again, stay with it. Fill it the way that you filled the last exercise. Again, it's just a little bit more practice, making sure those edges are exactly what they're supposed to be. And again, I don't want you to think like, oh, once you get past these things, you're not going to have to deal with this. This is the first step of every painting, filling. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. The better you get, the easier it's going to become, the faster you're going to be. So don't feel like you need to rush. Speed will come on its own. And again, you're going to hear me harping on these things, and yeah, I kind of apologize up front. But I can tell you from experience, a year from now, somebody will say to me that I didn't say something if I didn't say it 100 times. It'll be a missing piece in what you are doing. So I say these things that are critical to your development. I will say them over and over and over so that you cannot forget them. Okay, so after I get this down, I want to point something out. So as I've been working and I've been grabbing paint, I've started to get some buildup on the brush. If you look at the brush, you'll notice there's some excess paint up here, back in here. I can't have that on the brush and still maintain control of what's coming off of the brush. So I've got to get that off of the brush, and you'll see when I do this. It's quite a bit of paint, and it goes all the way up towards the ferrule up here. So I want to make sure the brush, I get that off of the brush. Now I can go back in and I can grab paint and go back to work.
Lightman TV,
I just want to make sure.
Welcome to the mythology where talent is a myth.
I don't have any excess paint, and that everything is filled. Just making one more kind of run up this way. Again, the edge that's going to bump up against the light over here, I want to make sure it is sharp as well. There are no specks of canvas showing through it. I've gone a little bit over, so I'm just going to cover that when I come back with the light. So I'm going to jump from my extreme shadow to my moderate light. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch out my brush. I'm going to use this brush for my shadows and my shadows alone. And I'm going to use a new brush for my lights. That way I don't have to worry about the contamination. Jumping from my extreme shadow to my moderate light is going to be very hard to not contaminate this. This moderate light is going to start to look more like the moderate shadow, and I don't want that. So, load up my brush. And fill in my light. And again, remember, I don't want you grabbing blobs of paint and throwing it up here and then pushing around. I will know if you've done something you're not supposed to. Make no mistake. I've seen this stuff a million times. I've been teaching this for years. I know if you cheat. I mean, you'll know if you cheat, but I'll know if you cheat. And you don't want to find yourself there. It's one thing to make mistakes. It's another thing to openly and thoughtfully defy what I'm telling you to do. And the whole idea is that you are here in this program to learn how we do what we do. You can't do it by ignoring me. You have to follow what I tell you, like to the best of your ability. Again, it's one thing if you don't understand. It's another thing to like openly defy me. And I'm telling you, every one of you, you're going to look down at this palette after back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and think, I could just grab the paint and kind of put it up here and push it around. It's going to cross your mind. Don't do it. Don't do it. You don't get the same result. The quality of the paint, you just don't get the same result, and it's obvious. I can tell you that if you did get the same result, I'd be throwing the paint up here and slopping it around right now for speed. But you don't. And these gradients will become almost impossible fighting. That's an uphill battle that you'd be fighting to get these gradients in. And so we're going to start really by doing gradients. When we get to our second painting, which is just around the corner, we'll be explaining how we know where gradients go and really what they do. Like here, we're just creating a fade. But a fade does something specific in a painting. It turns form. It makes things look three-dimensional. So your gradients are necessary in order to create the impression of three dimensions.
These are all recorded videos for the course. And they have like study groups that meet up whenever. There's like a video chat room basically where people can like drop in and out, and teachers will drop in and out, and you can sign up for one-on-one like office hour sessions. Or you can just call him up. I don't know. He gave me a cell phone number. He was just like, hey, if you're ever stuck on an assignment, like hit me up. And I was like, okay. Yeah, but he said the courses are designed in a way such that you probably won't need to ask very many questions, but they're always there in case you need to ask someone something.
So you are learning that tool as your second exercise. We're not applying it yet, but even that's not far away. I'm going to talk a little bit while I fill these in about the moving parts of a painting. So a grayscale painting, and again, I just grabbed paint and I kind of grabbed it and I brought the brush up and I realized the brush wasn't shaped right. I didn't paint. I brought the brush back down, fixed the shape of it, and then brought it back up. And again, I fixed the shape of it by grabbing paint, by kind of running the brush through paint. So here, I don't want to run the risk of picking up this dark paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill by going across. And when I get to the edge, I'll establish that edge. Anyway, a grayscale painting, no matter how complex the painting is comprised of just two moving parts. It has values. Values are shades. Do they mean the same thing? They're how dark or light the grayscale is. The other moving part are edges. You have, for what we do, two types: razor sharp or soft gradients. In the real world, there are varying degrees of what you would think of as a sharp edge and a gradient. But for our purposes at the beginning of learning, it's critical that you adhere to razor sharp edges or softly graded edges. It's either one or the other. And you'll see very quickly that with just the 4 shades of gray and the 2 types of edges, that you're going to be able to create things that look more 3-dimensional than probably anything you've ever done in your life, unless you've been seriously painting for a long time. But even then, creating the impression of volume requires just these 2 moving parts. And I can tell you that if you looked at the Sistine Chapel, that massive painting in grayscale, that painting is comprised of nothing but shades of gray, again, if it was in a grayscale, and sharp and graded edges. There's nothing else. As vast as that painting is, there's nothing else in that painting. Values and edges. So, again, we've opted to start with 4, but you're going to see how this fleshes out and gives us an almost infinite range of values.
All right, so that is video number 1. Yeah, like I said, like this stuff takes a hot minute. So I am 19 minutes into this stream, and I have finished half of 1 rectangle on my sheet. I feel like that definitely surprised me. Sort of like with Drawbox when he was like, you know, take your time, whatever, boxes take a while. And I was like, wow, it took me like 20 minutes to draw 1 box or whatever. Had you watched the video before? I watched it yesterday, but I didn't start painting. Yeah, I watched through most of the videos, I think, for this lesson, but I didn't do any painting because I didn't have time and I was sad. So now I get to finally do it. And I was thinking of skipping the videos. I was like, do I really need the videos? I already watched them. But then I was like, nah. I didn't give it my full attention last time, so I'll watch it again and give it my full attention this time. Hi! Thanks. I'm gonna turn on the fan. Ugh. So, yeah, I guess I'll just finish up the other side of this. Yeah, so, yeah, basically, like, the first exercise was learning how to do just that. Man, y'all can hear that? Oh, awkward. Lol. Yeah, I want to keep the window open because, you know, oil paint fumes and such. Moderate light. Yeah, I think I live like moderately close to the airport. Hi. Glad to hear. Yeah, let's be productive. Do some cool stuff together. Does Kevin want you to try and use your shoulder/elbow for painting? I don't think he said anything in particular about that, other than you just like don't want to hold it like right up against the ferrule like this. You want to let go a little bit. But he said it might be hard at first because we are using such small brushes, doing such precise work. So he hasn't said anything about that in particular. I did find one thing interesting. It reminded me a lot of like Uncomfortable and Drawbox when he was talking about like when he was teaching us how to fill in these boxes and stuff and how to make like the razor sharp edges. He said like there's a reason why you don't want to paint it however you want and why you need to do it like in a specific way. And that's because it takes time to master something. So you'd rather master like these 3 brush strokes, right? Than like every brush stroke that can possibly be put onto the canvas. And that reminded me of how Uncomfortable said like you should rotate your paper because you want to master that one line first and eventually it'll start like migrating, right, into different types of lines. But you need to get your one line down in one direction. Oh yeah, and like I'm turning this canvas, which I didn't really think was possible. I think it's kind of hilarious. But yeah, he says like for every one of these squares, turn the canvas around to get the edges that your hand would cover. Yeah, I know, right? Yep, canvas is currently upside down so I can get the other edges that my hand would be covering. Why's that? I don't know anything about like fine art or whatever. But I don't think Kevin cares about that. It's like this isn't like a fine art course, you know? This is a drawing fundamentals course, and whatever constraints or things you need to learn, he's down for that. All right, let's turn it back around so we can do the other corners. I don't know that much about fine arts, but I heard from people say that you're not allowed to turn the canvas when you're taking courses at an art school. If that's how they teach the best, I can't say anything about it, but I feel like every curriculum is like self-contained, you know? Because they might contradict each other sometimes, but when you put it all together, it creates like a good result. Or you hope so in the end, right? So maybe that's to train something else. Hi! Welcome, welcome. Good luck on exercise 1. It took me forever. And now exercise 2 is taking me forever too. All right, so I have my first rectangle filled. Woo! Let's move on to the next video. Yay!
So I've got my first one done. I'm gonna wipe my brush, put it aside, grab my shadow brush again. This one is gonna start with my moderate shadow. So again, I'm just gonna flatten out some paint because I've been using the brush for the extreme shadow. Flatten out some paint here and make sure that I've neutralized any of the extreme shadow that's in the brush. I'll wipe the brush, then go in and I'll grab what I'll be painting with. Divide this in half, and again, just, and then fill. Again, when you're working on finished paintings, in block 1, you're going to be dealing with hard edges. Like I could easily just make this a messy edge and then when I fill this in, kind of push it up and sharpen it. And when you get to block 2 and you're making your paintings from direct observation, where you're looking at a still life and doing it from scratch, you're going to start doing that a little bit. But while we have the transfers and we have all the lines in place to tell us exactly where everything goes, we want to take advantage of them. The lines protect us from putting things where they don't belong. The lines will help us to keep a ball round, edges straight, and so we want to make sure that when we're putting the paint down, we are capitalizing on those transfer lines. We're not going to have them forever. And again, I shouldn't say that. Depending on what you do with your art, you could always have transfer lines, but you could also get away from them and never use a transfer ever again once you're educated. Do nothing but work from direct observation. And nothing wrong with either one of those. There are lots of arguments out in the art world about, well, you know, especially amongst traditionalists, can you work from photographs? Is that okay? And, you know, almost all art these days is done from photographic reference. Almost all of it. Even the portraits that are being done, very few of them are done from direct observation. The truth is, the people that can afford those portraits, for the most part, their time is too valuable. They're not going to sit for an artist for 12 hours or whatever it takes to get a portrait done. And again, I mean, it could be anywhere from 3 to 15 hours of sitting over several days. You know, and they're either traveling to your studio or you're doing it in their home or in their office or whatever. So you're kind of displacing them while you're doing it. You know, people who can afford this stuff, for the most part, don't have the time. Their time is too valuable to waste. There are some people who want it done the traditional way, but very few of them these days. It's a skill I recommend, like as you do this, it's a skill that you develop. We're going to teach you how to do it, and I recommend that you stay practiced, both working from photographs and working from direct observation. You're going to learn it, so you may as well practice it and maintain the skill. You'll never forget how it works once you've learned it, but you can get rusty. If you don't do it, you'll get rusty. And so it's a good thing to practice. In the school, every student, when they finish doing a painting from a photograph, must do at least 2 days of class painting from direct observation. I don't really care what they're painting. It's generally based on their skill level. They can work on things that are fairly complex. So I've got my shadow in. I'm going to go to my light. So I grab my brush from my light again, and I'm keeping them separated. I'm keeping them separated so that they're nowhere near each other. I don't want to accidentally grab the wrong brush. And again, you can see, just making sure everything is right. So again, here, this has the moderate light on it. I'm now going to go in here and I'm going to neutralize that. Wipe the brush, grab paint, and fill. And again, you notice I'm not picking the brush up between strokes. Brush stays in contact with the canvas as much as possible. The longer you stay in contact, the more connected, the more the brush becomes, well, you hold the brush long enough, the brush becomes an extension of your hand. If the brush touches the canvas long enough, the connection between the brush and the canvas becomes part of you as well. Every time you pick the brush up, you break that connection. So you want to make sure you maintain it as much as possible. There's no reason to pick the brush up. And again, I'm staying away from this edge. I don't want to contaminate my extreme light as I'm putting it down. See if I can get this top edge without flipping the canvas. Again, I don't want you doing this. I would prefer for you to flip the canvases as you go to make sure that your edges are as clean as you can get them. Bear in mind, there are going to be some things that I do here that I'm going to make look very easy. I have been doing this professionally for just about 30 years. I was saying 10,000 hours to mastery. The first 10 years of my career as an illustrator, I think I clocked close to 40,000 hours. I worked day and night. I was relentless. And so what you're watching, like when I'm able to turn the brush and kind of roll it in, that's going to be more difficult, and you're going to sacrifice quality if you try to do it. Okay, for me, I'm just trying to get through filling this so that I can get on to showing you the next exercise. But I do want you to stay with what you were shown in the first exercise as far as how you fill. Rotate the canvas as you go. So I'm using the blade edge of the brush now. And you'll see I'm eliminating any dots of canvas sitting in between these shades as I put them down. I wipe my brush because I bumped up against this. I wipe my brush so that I'm not contaminating my extreme light before I come in and I do my last pass. Good.
I know. That's just whack. Yeah, so that's him. He filled his little rectangle in like 7 minutes or whatever. And I'm like halfway through half of my first rectangle. I'm halfway through half of this rectangle. So, just patience, I guess. Like, I know, y'all. This guy, I feel like he's really cool. I don't know. I've spoken to him 3 times now. We've called 3 times. And the last time I was asking about this stream and I was like, hey, can I like show your videos? He was like, like if you want to let them like watch over your shoulder, that's fine. I was like, okay, yeah. And he's just like, what a dude. And he was just like, if people want a piece of this, if people are interested in what I'm saying, if people think that this can help them, I have no doubt that they will come and like get the course, because they'll want the materials and they'll want all the lessons and they'll want to learn. And if they are not interested, then you sharing all of the materials and all the lessons won't do anything because they were never interested. So you can show however much you want of the course. And I was like, my dude. 11 hours a day for 10 years straight. That's insanity. No, he has like 3 rectangles. He has like 3 rectangles on his thing. In the first video, he filled in the first one. Second video, he filled in the second one. Third video, he's doing the third one. And then I'm guessing he's going to demonstrate like 1 gradient on each. And then I have to do it like 3 more times for each thing. That's crazy. Even if I had all the time in the world, I don't think I would be able to do art for that much, my lord. Hello. Yep. Oh, today we're gonna do gradients. But in order to do gradients, first I have to fill in all my rectangles. So here we are, hanging out, painting rectangles. Okay, another square has been filled. And now we move on to the other side, the other side with the extreme light. Yeah, I find it quite fascinating. Yeah, basically he said there's like 3 types of like strokes that we're learning at the moment. One of them is like this sort of like back and forth thing where you like work up to an edge and you can make like straight edges that are neat. And there's like another one where you're like use the side to fill in like the corners and then you like brush it up and down in order to flatten out the paint and stuff. And he said, learn these 3, master these 3. It's a lot easier to master 3 brush strokes than every possible way of applying paint onto the canvas. Okay, so I cleaned off our shadow brush, move on to our light brush. How's the Evolve course going? It's going pretty well. So this is one of the homework assignments I'm working on right now. Yep, working on it. And I'm like watching the videos as I go, so if you're interested in hearing any of the lessons, then stick around, because once I finish this one, I'm going to watch the video for the last rectangle. I feel like this definitely goes pretty slow because, well, I've been streaming for 49 minutes now, and I got this far into my painting so far. And if you like extrapolate that to like the rest of the canvas, this is gonna take a while. And I feel like, I don't know, a big part of the course is being okay with that and still giving like your 100% effort on the first one and the last one, even though it takes a lot of effort to bring your A game, right? Like, this is only taking so long because I'm like really, really, really being careful. And that's what he teaches, to just be super careful and never settle for less than your very best. Man, there's a lot of noises going on outside. There's like someone who lives near me. I don't know like which direction. I guess they're like below me since I'm on the top floor. But they play like just the loudest, bassiest music. And earlier I could like feel it through the walls and stuff. Like, why? I don't understand. I guess it's kind of quiet since I'm like focused on painting and stuff. So in between videos, is there anything interesting y'all want to listen to? Or is just music and silence good with y'all? I feel a bit awkward. I feel like that might just be me though. Sound off, I guess. Okay, cool. I'm down. I like observing you paint. Really gives me a perspective on oil painting and techniques I don't know of. Yeah, this is definitely pretty new to me. Like whenever I was learning to oil paint over the summer, I wasn't really given any guidance on how to actually do it. Just more about like how to observe. So like learning exactly how to like just put paint on the canvas using a brush is really interesting. And plus like how to mix the paint, how to add like oil to the paint, and proper techniques for washing oil paint off your hands and how to clean your brushes. Like I was never taught any of that. And it's like really nice knowing that. And it might like I don't know like if that seems important or unimportant to you, but like knowing like how to do the right thing and why to do the right thing is really important to me. And without like, you know, like how many art courses go through that stuff? Exactly. Like legitimately, like most tutorials I see online, they just like show you I don't know, the steps or I don't know, they show you how someone does something, but they don't explain why or like why they chose to make those choices. And you know what? Like, I don't care about drawing one flower, you know? I want to learn how to draw flowers, like the important parts to look for, and like why they're important anatomically, and how to make believable flowers. Like, I want to learn the rules to the game, not just how to play one game. I don't know if that made any sense. I don't know, it makes a lot of sense, but I also feel like the more you learn, the better you can use those tutorials. Yeah, exactly. So you need to learn this stuff first, so then when you look at the tutorial, you understand what they're trying to say. It's just like, whenever you get really skilled, your brain changes and you know things, right? And you forget what it's like not to know those things. So you look at your own tutorial, you're like, yep, that makes perfect sense to me. And someone who doesn't know anything looks at it and they're just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But there's like a communication disconnect and you don't know how to bridge that gap. The gap is that you tell the beginner, go learn all these skills that you don't know. But like, that's not what people want to hear, you know? They just want to hear, oh, here's what you're not getting. Now you can perfectly follow this tutorial. You know, that's how I felt, right? I'm just like, what's this? Like, what is this missing piece between like me not understanding this and like other people seeming to know what this is talking about? And the missing piece is like years of training in fundamentals. But you know, I didn't want to hear that. I was like, I want to draw this right now. Which didn't really work out, which is why I'm here learning the fundamentals now. But often the tutorial advertise them as being total beginner guide, but they aren't relevant until you've been doing something for a while. Exactly. That's the problem with them. It's not that they're bad tutorials. It's that they're bad for beginners because you need like prerequisites in order to use that knowledge effectively. And everyone has a different definition of what a beginner is. Like, I'd still say I'm a beginner, but I know more now than I did 2 years ago. Okay, done with my second rectangle of the day. We're moving along, we're making progress, y'all.
And now I'm going to move on to my last painting, my last gradient, and I'm going to do my moderate shadow, which is already on the brush. Again, as you're working, you try to find ways that are comfortable for you to use the brush. Generally, I don't like to be so close. I don't like the angle to be so steep. I like to be out here. But the small brushes are making it a little bit difficult. I also never paint sitting down. I always paint standing, but with the small brushes, painting standing is a little bit hard. These small paintings with little brushes are going to be difficult to do standing.
Have I painted oil paint prior to Evolve? Yes. Over the summer, I joined this art studio with this dude, and he was a painter, and we would all go in and he would go around like telling us what to do with our paintings. So I feel like it's important to show off my previous work. So this is the last oil painting I did on my own. So that's what I made. And then before that, back at the studio, man, I've done a lot apparently. Oh my god, how far is this? This is a painting I did at that studio. This is another painting I did at that studio. I did this in 3 hours, which I feel like is whack, but that's what you get when you really, really want to finish the painting. You're sloppy. Like there's a lot of, like there's literally places that don't have paint on them, and you have a big brush. What else? And this was my first painting that I did. It's a self-portrait. But these were all, like, I heavily had help from the dude. He was a very good painter. Not so much a good teacher, because he would basically just, like, show you what to do, but not, like, tell you exactly why, if you know what I mean.
Standing. It's not that you can't, but they'll take some getting used to. And so for me, I find sitting for these is probably best. Again, it puts me out of my element a little bit. It's been a very long time since I've worked on anything under, I don't know, 3 feet by like life-size figures. So I'm not accustomed to working on things this size. My normal situation when I work, I stand up and I'm working with brushes this long. So, but for you sitting down, again, I recommend getting a floor easel like this one. If you don't have the room or the budget for it, obviously a tabletop easel will suffice. And of course, that information you should already have. You should have received it when you first got into the program. You do want to make sure that what you're working on is sturdy. One of the nice things about this is that when you get to the point where you can work standing up, this easel will allow that. It doesn't become an additional purchase. And these steel easels, they last forever. Okay, so as I flipped it, I noticed I got a whole bunch of dots showing through here that I didn't see when it was in the other orientation. So just go back and fill them in. And that'll happen just the way that the light's sitting in. My lights are directly above me. So they're casting shadows, and those shadows can give the impression that an area is filled when it's not. So again, I'm always looking for my mistakes. Again, I make them. We all do. Even after all these years, I make mistakes. That's just what it is. But I don't leave them behind. I fix them. I fix them the moment that I see them. See, like, I wouldn't move on from filling this until I've looked it over. So it's not like I would get to this one and then be making this gradient and realize I made a mistake here and fix it. I check it before I move on to the next thing. I make sure that it is everything that it is supposed to be before I move on. Okay, down to my last light. Back to my moderate light, and again I neutralize any of the extreme light that was in the brush. Now, you don't need to have 4 brushes, one for each shade. That's overkill. But I do recommend when you're doing this, break out 2 brushes. It is going to make life a lot easier, and it's going to help to keep your work from getting contaminated. Contamination is a big problem learning to control all of this so that you don't get these contaminations between the shades is very important as far as making finished paintings. We need to be able to see these 4 shades distinctly in our finished paintings, where they're not muddled and we're confused about which shade we're looking at. We need to be able to recognize them distinctly in the paintings. And so if they become muddied on your palette, they're going to be muddied on your painting. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. And if you see, like on your palette, that you've gotten some paint in there that's not looking right, wipe it off. Just wipe it away. Don't leave it there. Don't work around it. Stop for a minute, put your brushes down, clean it up. Get it out of there so it's no longer in the way. And just bring this up to that edge. And just overlap the edge just a tiny little bit. So I'm getting a little bit of a blurred edge. I mean, just a hair's width. It's not really blurred. But what that does is it guarantees that not a single speck of canvas is showing through where those two...
What is going on? Or you could put a height adjustable table and a table easel and put wheels on the desk, and now you have a portable easel. Very gay boxes. Yes. Big gay.
Two shades meet. I don't want there to be a deficit of paint where they meet. I don't want to trail off and have the paint heavier here and get thinner and thinner as I work my way in. I want it to be equal everywhere. A lot of people will do that, where when they bring two things together, the paint will become less and less on the brush as they go because they feel like less paint gives them better control. It's the other way around. Keeping that consistent amount of paint is going to give you a better result every single time. Okay, so I've got my shades in place. My extreme shadow with my moderate light, my moderate shadow with my extreme light, and then my moderate shadow with my moderate light. And again, this is basically what you are going to be seeing as you paint. All interactions that will require a gradient will be, for the most part, between these three combinations.
Yep. So, we're almost there, boys and girls. We're almost to our first gradient. An hour and 12 minutes into stream. Uh, this is a box. Look at it. It's a box in perspective. This is one side of the box. This is the other side of the box, clearly. Jefferson Daniel, welcome to the mythology where talent is a myth. I've got to be careful with these dabs now so I don't accidentally fling paint onto the canvas or something. Ooh, that one came out real nice. This is a test. What do you see? I see no boxes, but windows. This just reminds me of, like, you know, when you get like a new Minecraft skin, like they show it to you as like the unfolded version, and this just looks like, I don't know, like two sides of a cube, right? But it's like unfolded, so you see both the sides. I don't know if y'all have ever read The Witcher, The Last Wish, but there's like a scene with Geralt and Yennefer like flying through the air, and like I've got it made up that I want to paint that scene when I can paint goodly. I feel like it would be a really cool thing to like illustrate. I don't know why I said that. That's like really random, but that's like a dream of mine. Gotta be concentrated. Otherwise it won't come out. In my first video talking about this, where I was unboxing the art supplies, I said that Kevin said that if you put in the effort, or he was like, if you put in the effort, then we guarantee your results. And someone was like, oh, of course they say that. Like, isn't that kind of suspicious? Because then if you don't succeed, they can blame it on you. But, like, sure, that's true, because a lot of scams do say that, right? Like, if you fail, then it's your fault. But if you succeed, then, like, we take credit for that, right? But on the other hand, it's like true, right? Like any course, you're not gonna get anything out of it unless you put into it, you know, just like college or high school or class of any sort. So yeah, I wasn't really sure how to react to that. Turning the paper, is it something they recommended as well for better lines around the boxes? Yes. Yeah, he said since, right, like if you want to do all the edges, your hand will cover some of it. So he said, just turn the easel around to get that better. Like draw a box. I don't know. I feel like Kevin Murphy, the guy who created this program, and Uncomfortable, I respect them both very much. And the fact that, you know, they both recommend that you turn your paper or turn the canvas, it makes me feel better about it, that they agree. Okay, we made it. We made it through our first 3 rectangles. It's been an hour and a half. Woo! So, honestly, this is taking a lot longer than I thought it would. When I started the course, I was not expecting to spend like my first 5 hours doing this. I thought it would go by a lot faster, like the first couple exercises in Drawbox. Clearly, that is not been the case. But, that's fine, right? Because as long as I trust the system, as long as I just, keep going through it, I'll eventually get to the other end as long as I keep putting time in and moving forward. So that's the promise, at least. And I've turned my brain off, basically, to questioning that. And I will turn it back on and look at where I am in a year. So many gray windows. All right, creating our first gradient. Woo! I'm excited. Finally.
We are now going to grade these together. We're going to create a gradient. So, in the first one, we have an extreme shadow with a moderate light. The idea is that between these two, we want to put all 3 shades that are between them. So between this and this, we have 1, 2, 3 shades, right? Because from here to here, we go from this is a little lighter, a little lighter, a little lighter, a little bit lighter. So what we want to do is, in putting these 3 in between, we want to start with the one that fits equally in between. So that's going to be what we call our buffer. Our buffer is going to take up a space right smack in the middle between these 2 shades, and it's going to cover that existing seam. This is the buffer between these 2, because between the shadow and the buffer there's 1 shade, between the light and the buffer there's 1 shade. So I'm going to load up my brush, and I'm going to basically just cover that. Now if you look at my brush, you can see I've got all kinds of different shades on my brush. I need to wipe my brush, and that's going to happen a couple of times while I'm doing this. I'm going to go back, I'm going to get more, and I'm going to do it again. Now I'm not adding blobs and blobs of paint, same amount of paint as I did for everything else. It's just that it's being built up on top. And I want to create a barrier that sits between the shadow and the light, and buries the original shades. And so once I've got it down, I can kind of play around with it and make sure that it's mixed into what's underneath, and everything is that I've now got this. I've got basically 3 stripes here is what I'm looking at, and there's no variation inside of that buffer. Now the buffer doesn't need to be a straight line. It could be laid down like I'll do another one and I'll use the bigger brush for it, and you can see it's about the thickness of the bigger brush, your number 12. The next one I'll do with the number 12 brush, and I'll show you how we can make messy edges out of it. So, this buffer is meant to separate all things that are shadows from all things that are lights. This is our original shadow. If this is our buffer, this is going to be on the shadowed side. This is our light. This is going to be on the lit side. This sits in between. So, I'm going to start by grabbing, I'm going to do my shadowed side first, and don't need a lot of paint. And now I'm going to use the blade edge of the brush this way. Not like this, but like this. Okay, again, I'll show it here. Not like this, like this. And the reason is, if I do this, this gives me these razor sharp, scissory lines. If I do the side of the brush, I get these chunky marks. These are going to break up the edge of that much easier. They're not going to impart what we call artifacts. I'm not going to get a bunch of lines in there. So, from here, I'm going to use the blade edge of the brush, and all I'm going to do is kind of nudge the edge back and forth. And you see, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just kind of taking my time and just working the edge. Now, I'm only going to go maybe about 2 centimeters, and then stop. Right? So maybe 3/4 of an inch. I'll go back and I'll get more paint. And the reason is, I'm picking up this and this on the brush as I'm nudging that together. I don't want to drag that all the way down here. It's just going to make a mess. So I go back and I get this shade, which fits in between these 2 shades, and I start it over again, over here. And again, I'll go down, and if I see it start to contaminate, I'll stop. But so I got down. Now again, when I put this down in here, you'll see, look at the contaminant. I've got darker and lighter. I'll work that back into this paint, and now I'm going to do another pass. But you can see, if you look at this edge and look at this edge, look at how soft this edge is compared to this. This is already becoming a gradient. It doesn't really have to be much softer than that. I'm going to do another pass now, working from the other end, the other direction. And again, I'm not pressing hard. I'm really just kind of dusting the surface of the painting. There's no pressure. Just skimming the surface ever so gently. Careful not to drag this shade into this shade. If I feel like the brush got contaminated, I just go back, get more.
Feels a little bit bad, like after every contamination having to like wipe off the paint, you know? But on the other hand, like this paint was never going to be usable again, right? It never would have given me a good result anyway. It just feels bad.
More paint on the brush. Good. And so I'm still seeing a bit of an edge in here, so I'm just going to grab a little bit more, and I'm going to work to try to dissolve that edge just a little bit more. And again, I'm staying in contact for the most part the entire way. I'm doing a half and picking it up. So that last one I went the whole way, but it's already been worked up with this shade. Now that side is done. That side is now a gradient. There's no discernible edge. I'm now going to do the other side. Now it's important to understand that when I did that, I barely touched the buffer. The buffer is almost entirely intact at this point, and I want it to stay that way. When I work the lit side of it, I'm going to work out here, leaving almost the entire buffer untouched. On this side, I'm going to go back to the brush I used for my lights. So now, between my shadow and my buffer, I use this. Between my light and my buffer, I use this one. I'm going to load up the brush with this. Again, I don't need a lot of paint, but I do want to make sure that this is the only shade on the brush. I don't want this on the brush coming off as I paint this. So here, and again, nice and gentle, I'm just going to work this edge. And I'm in no rush. Look at how I'm not going anywhere. Like I didn't like race down to make the gradient. Just kind of staying in the space, just trying to make the edge break down. And I got a little bit going. I'll wipe the brush, come back and grab some more. And I'll do the same from here down. And again, my strokes are very short. They're tiny. They're like a centimeter. There's not really a lot of movement. Go back and get more paint. Now, I've got a bit of an edge here, and I've got a bit of an edge here. I'm going to resolve just one of them at a time. So I'm just going to kind of work down the inner edge, just try to dissolve it into the buffer, and it's gone now. All I've got left now is this outer edge. So this one I'm going to do a little bit like half and half. So I'm going to start down here, and again, just try to break up the edge. I'm only touching the paint where the edge is. So I'm not painting out here or in here. I'm only painting right on that edge, right there. Keeping those strokes nice and tight. This is a result-driven thing. I am looking to fade the edge. So if I'm only looking to fade the edge between these two things where they touch, I only need to touch the thing where the edge is. And again, so this gradient's already looking really nice. So I'm just going to go in, I see a couple of little places that I think could be softened just a little bit more. And again, I'm not picking my brush up as I'm doing this. I'm just going back and forth. Okay. And that's actually looking pretty good to me. A little bit more. Again, a couple of places where I'm just seeing some edges that I'd like to be a little bit more dissolved. And I'll continue to work it gently until I see the edges that I'm, until I see the edges disappear. And that's a gradient. Now, I'm taking my time, I'm scrolling through it. Gradients are what explain volume, and they add an elegance to a painting. This is where paintings become elegant. And so this skill is, again, the first exercise and this exercise, these skills are everything. If you do this, you can do everything you've seen on our website. It's just a matter of getting confident enough. This is what makes paintings beautiful. And you can see there's an equal density of the paint everywhere. There's nothing, everything looks nice and soft, and that's what we're looking for.
I don't think I did this right. My gradient looks really bad. Let me see if I can bring this closer so I can show you my shame and my pain. Okay, let's just grab this thing. It looks bad. It looks like I use like the smudge tool in Photoshop a little bit too much. I'm gonna try and soften out this edge again, I guess.
So I'm going to jump in. I'm going to use the big brush to create my buffer for this one. So the second one is a moderate shadow with an extreme light. So my moderate light is the buffer, because between this shadow and the buffer there's one shade. Between this light and the buffer there's one shade. So I'm going to use the bigger brush for this. And again, just load the brush up. And now I'm going to make this a little bit messier. I'm not going to make it just a stroke. I'm going to kind of zigzag my way down. I'll go back, I'll get a little bit more. And you can see a little bit of contaminant. I clean that up. I really just work that in. And now I'm just going to go down the center of this and make sure that it's clean, one shade. Top to bottom. I don't really care about the outer edges. Those I will deal with when I make my gradient. So, between my shadow and my buffer, this shade is going to then create your gradient on the shadowed side. So, I'm going to work with this, my brush that I used from the last one for my lights. This was already on the brush, so I'm just going to continue with it. And again, all I'm going to do is nudge the edge. No rush. Look, I mean, I spend 10, 15, 20 seconds just doing 2 centimeters. Come back, make sure I've got my brush clean. Again, I'll do this from the bottom this time. Just come up. Just nudging that edge as I go. We've got a nice soft gradient. And that edge is basically done. There's really nothing else to do. I could soften this further, but even this, it's not even necessary. Just like that. I'll move over to the other side. So I'm going to wipe this brush, and then I'm going to move over to the other side. Between my buffer and my light, I have this shade. And again, these, we call this top row and second row. These are also our admixtures. The admixtures have more than one role in the painting process. For now, we're just worried about our gradients. So again, blade edge of the brush. Just try to nudge this together. And you can see I'm moving the brush back and forth. Nice and easy in here. So this is blended in here, but I've got a bit of an edge here. So I'm just going to knock this edge down. Try to just dissolve it. And that'll do the bottom half. Again, I'm kind of just smushing the shades together, utilizing the third shade. So I'm smushing these together using this. This just helps to ease them together. It fits in between them. Again, it's blended in here. It just needs this edge to be cleaned up. So just very gently nudge that together. And again, I'm just skimming the surface of the painting. And I've got my gradients. Just clean. A little bit of something going on in here. Just clean that up. So, and I've got my gradient. Now, I can promise you that it looks a little bit easier than it is. People always come back to me and they say, I make it look easy. Play around with it. Don't rush through them. The idea is that you're going to have a couple of pages of these to do. You have to get them down solid. Do one. And if there's something that's not working, try to figure out what it is. Feel free to go back and watch this video again. Watch what I'm doing. Okay? But you have to get this down solid before we can start making paintings. Don't do an entire page with the same mistake. Be critical of your own work. Smooth transitions.
Hi, Mocap.
Now I'm gonna frame these up afterwards. I'm gonna cover these.
I feel like, I don't know, I don't like the way that my gradients turned out. I feel like they don't look like his gradients. In fact, they don't look very gradient at all. Let me zoom in a bit closer. I feel like there's like clearly a line between like the two halves on mine. Well, good thing I have, this plus another page to get it good, right? So I think it'll be exciting to see the improvement, if any improvement should happen.
Messy edges at the top and bottom, you get a better sense of just how smooth these gradients are. So now, between these two shades, my moderate shadow and my moderate light, this is my buffer. Because this is the only one sitting between them. So for this one, I'm going to put my buffer down. And again, I'm making a messy edge now, kind of like I did with the big brush on the last one, but now I'm doing it with a small brush. Just so you can see, you don't have to have a sharp edge in order for the buffer to be successful. In fact, I would argue that a sloppier edge like this, as long as the paint is even, the sloppier edge is easier to make the gradient with. Now, in this last one, because it's only these three shades, you can see just how they're almost blended. I'm going to go back to my original shadow, and I'm going to use it to dissolve the edge on the shadowed side. Wipe my brush, and then I'll go back to the original light. And use it. You got a little bit too much paint on the brush. And use it to dissolve the lit side. And again, I take my time. You notice I'm not just going up and down. These are angled strokes, and I'm changing the angle. I'm going back and forth. I'm also moving this way and this way. I'm changing the angle as I go. For effect, I am trying to fade the edge. And if something that I'm doing is not giving me the faded edge that I'm looking for, I change the direction of the brush, change the direction of its movement. And again, I am very gentle as I'm doing this. I am not applying a lot of paint. I'm applying almost none. I'm using just the very, very slightest pressure to blend together the surface of the paint. Again, when I'm doing it, I'm barely touching. It's this soft. I could press more. You can hear it. If you're doing it right, you should barely hear the brush touching the canvas. Now, this is where it becomes so important that this shade be perfectly between, or this shade be perfectly between these two. If this is closer, if that buffer shade is closer to this, it's going to blend easily here and be a fight over here. So I want to make sure, again, when you're mixing your admixtures, you're careful to make them a center value, really right in between. If you think of this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we wouldn't want 1, 2.3 means that it would be closer to this shade than to this shade. We wanted a true 2. Anyway, so I'm going to very quickly frame these so that you can see them with their messy edges gone. In fact, I'm going to drop a little bit more oil in here. Again, more oil will make the paint flow. You'll be able to cover things very quickly. The problem with that is that your coverage will not be very good. You'll be able to see through the paint. For the sake of me framing them right now, I'm not overly concerned about them, but you can see the fluid paint, how it covers. Right, and I'm just framing these because I want you to see how clean the gradients should be. And you can test this on yours. I wouldn't do it on the first 1 or 2, but as you get down to the bottom of your first page, if you want to frame them when they're done, it will give you a better sense of just how clean they are. If there are errors, if the gradients are not good gradients, they will become more apparent when you do this. Again, we never thin the paint down like this. I'm doing this just to be able to fly through this. I don't want to spend 10 minutes, waste 10 minutes of your time while I fill this stuff in with thicker paint. Right, and I mean, you can get a sense of it already. You can see them as these edges go in. The sharper the outer edges, the more of a disparity between them, the softer the gradients look. That's another thing. And we'll be talking about that as we get into utilizing this in paintings. The difference between things, because all things are relative. A sharp edge is only sharp when it's surrounded by things that are softer. Again, you can have something that looks like a sharp edge and then you put it next to something that's really sharp. Anybody who's ever, if you watch TV and you have a TV that's a 720, you ever stand in front of a 4K TV, the 720 looks sharp until you have something really sharp to compare it to. And again, you'll notice these are not silk smooth. I don't want them silk smooth. The criteria for a successful gradient is that there is no discernible edge in the gradient. That's the criteria. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to juxtapose the sharp edges against the gradients. If there is a discernible edge inside of the gradient, then it potentially lines up as a sharp edge. Again, even if it's a very subtle edge, sharp is still sharp. So we want to make sure that we don't have any edges inside of the gradient. You know, like here, there's a little bit of an edge here that could be wiped away, maybe even back in here. This one flows beautifully, so does this one. And again, I don't know how detailed the video camera picks this stuff up. Again, what I'm seeing here in studio. But these gradients are pretty clean. This one could be knocked down a little bit more, but again, if you can get your gradients here, you're doing great. Very, very rarely does a painting require a finer gradient than this. And if it does, then you just kind of roll up your sleeves and you take your time and you work it until it's what it's supposed to be. I don't want you spending hours making a gradient. You can see how quickly I was able to move through these. I wasn't rushing, right? And again, you see me, everything that I'm doing here, I'm taking my time, but I'm moving through each thing. And that's what I want from you. So with this, there are going to be 2 sheets that you're going to do. The first one, I want you to experiment as much as you can. I think you're going to have 4 or 5 rows. Experiment as much as you can so that when you submit it, we come back, we can talk to you about what it is that you're doing, what you're getting, what you're not getting, so that when you submit the second one, it's a perfect page, or as close as we can manage, okay? Take your time. Like, if you're too tightly wound about getting it perfect right from the beginning, you might get it right away, but if you don't, you have to loosen up and be willing to make a couple of failures to get the experience, right? Because making them is going to get the experience. If you make the same mistake over and over and over because you're trying to get this, you're trying to kind of force it, you're not going to get experience with variations on it. And what will happen is you'll finish the page no smarter, no better than when you finish it the same way you started it. We want to make sure that by the time you finish the page, you've got a solid grasp. You can then take that over with our advice to the second page and perfect them. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so this is what we're looking for our gradients. Good luck. I'm looking forward to seeing your homework. And again, this is the end of the exercises. After this, we're into making paintings. And your paintings are going to be made with nothing but this. There's nothing else to learn, right? And we're going to show you some things, change how you think about some stuff. But this is all you need to know about what to do with a brush and paint until you finish block 2, right? This is it. This is really it. We're going to make some incredible paintings with just this. Take your time with this. Don't rush. Get this down, make it amazing, so that when you get into those paintings, you fly. Good luck.
Yeah, not a fan of my current gradients. That feels pretty good, actually, getting his blessing to just like muck these up if I want to, because I do want to try to like put the buffer back down and go back through and fix up these like gradients. I don't know whether I should do that or just like try again on the next row. Actually, I think I might do that. Just like start filling in the next ones. But I think that's the end of the stream for today. I've been here for like 2 hours-ish, a little bit over 2 hours. So I wanted to thank you all for joining me. I've been having fun talking about art, talking about learning, talking about resources. Evolve, it feels pretty good to me so far. I just like Kevin Murphy. I think he's cool, and I really respect his hustle and just his overall like art and teaching philosophy. It just feels really good to me so far. I don't know, who knows? What do I know? But I'll be posting the progress on Discord whenever I finish, or I guess whenever I'm done for the day, because I don't know if I can finish this all in one day if I did like this much in 2 hours. Anyway, so I hope everyone has a good, productive day doing art and learning. I'll be back next week with more art streams. I think that's what I'm going to do. Like every Saturday, we can hang out, make some art together. So, yeah. Good night, everyone. Well, I don't know. It's not evening. Have a good day. Have a good productive day. Take a breather. Have some rest on the weekend. Nice work. Believe him, you'll fly if you don't rush. I believe that. I will go as slowly as I need to give this my best effort. I don't really like this first pass. I'll post it in the Discord so you can see it closer, but I feel like I don't think it's very good. But that's not going to stop me from doing another row and iterating and improving on it. Bye, everyone. See y'all in the Discord. If you're new, join the Discord. It's down in my profile. We make art and we're friends and we have fun together. Bye.